Hey guys, I'm Mason, and this is Wrestling in the Dark, the only professional wrestling podcast brought to you by a completely blind wrestling fan. This weekend was a packed weekend of wrestling, and even though I didn't get a chance to grab the Evolve show, I did watch Extreme Rules and Fight for the Fallen. So, I've got to record them back to back anyway, so we may as well call this the AEW versus WWE special, part 1. This will be my Extreme Rules review. So how good was the show? What happened? And was it any better than Fight for the Fallen? If you want to find out, stick with me as I go through both shows and see who came out on top. Roman Reigns and The Undertaker versus Shane McMahon and Drew McIntyre. This is the match that they kicked off the show with, and in my opinion was probably one of the best matches of the night, especially when it comes to the commentary, which, as you all know, is the thing that mainly matters to me, because if the commentary aren't doing the job well, I can't enjoy even a good match, as you will see with a few of the matches on this card. But this isn't one of them. It was actually a fairly enjoyable match. Roman Reigns got a fairly decent reception as he came out. It was mostly cheers. There was some audible boos, but it was more or less overwhelmingly cheers. Same with Undertaker. There was no boos there, but it was some loud Undertaker chants, as well as some "You Still Got It" chants. I really liked this match. I thought that it was a really good way to kick off the show. It had a big fight feel. The no holds barred aspect to it made it pretty interesting, especially as a kick-off to an Extreme Rules show. Michael Cole was on his game in this match, in my opinion, probably for one of the only times of the night, because past this I don't think that the commentary ever really got back to this standard. But during this match I never felt lost. I never felt like I was missing anything. All the spots were really clear and really easy to follow. That old school style of wrestling that Undertaker and Shane bring to the match really helped for me to be able to carry to be able to keep it all straight in my head, unlike keeping all of my notes in my head at the minute, because there is a lot to get through, so please bear with me. I really thought that there was some really cool moments in this. They made a big deal out of the fact that Drew was not scared of The Undertaker at all, and I really liked that, especially when you juxtapose that with the fact that Shane is very scared of The Undertaker. At one point, Taker pulled out a chair, and Shane wanted absolutely nothing to do with it, and he ran away. He had some decent offense on Drew McIntyre for a while, dumping him on the apron, kidney first, and then a leg drop. He got old school after looking for it a few times on Shane, and then he did get a snake eyes and a big boot. There was a nice bit with Roman and Drew in the corner where Drew was backing Roman up into the corner, but he fired back with some forearms and then hit a Samoan drop. Really, I just thought that I was never really lost in this match, and I really appreciated that, and it was a big surprise to me because I really wasn't expecting to like this match, because I don't have that fondness for Undertaker and Shane. I was expecting to absolutely hate this, and I also really didn't know who I wanted to come out on top, because, you know, you've got Drew on one team and Roman on the other team, and they both could really do with some wins and some momentum and actual weight behind them, instead of what they've got at the minute, where it's basically just helping two old guys out. And I did think that it made it look like Roman and Drew were the more athletic competitors in this, but I did like the fact that Shane and Drew worked pretty well as a team, with those frequent tags trying to cut off the ring, etc, etc. I can't say that Roman and Drew, even though Roman and Taker, even though they won the match in the end, I didn't feel like they showed any real proper teamwork, maybe other than one bit, which I thought was quite nice from the commentary, as Taker was about to do something to Shane. I'm really struggling to think now, but Shane had just gone down after Taker had hit him with Summit, and then Drew was behind Taker about to attack him, but Roman intercepted with the spear. I thought that was pretty cool. The part where it sort of dipped a little bit was where they'd hit the obligatory high spot for Shane, so they get him on the outside, they're taking it to Taker, and they go to put him through the announce table, and Elias makes an entrance and cracks either Taker or Roman with his guitar, and then Elias and Drew hold Undertaker on the announce table, and Shane does the diving elbow, and it all sort of slowed down for a little bit after that. There was maybe 3 or 4 minutes of sort of slow ploddiness until we got to the finish, where Shane ended up eating a tombstone from the Undertaker. Like I said, I was really impressed with this match. I thought that it made Shane and Drew look like they were working well as a team. It was good that Shane took the loss, not Drew. Would have been nice if it had been Roman that beat him, but this was more a Roman versus Drew, Undertaker versus Shane kind of situation. I'm looking forward to seeing where they go from there, and the one bit that sort of did annoy me was there was a few not missed calls or dropped calls, but there was just a few stupid ones, like punches in bunches by Shane McMahon, which was a Corey Graves line, as well as let me think what it was now. There was a bit where Drew was going after either Roman or Taker, and Cole was like, "Oh, everything Drew McIntyre does, he does with purpose, including this right here. Oh, look at that." And I'm like, okay, but it didn't frustrate me too much, because it was one of those things where the rest of the match had been called so well that I just was willing to forgive just a few stupid one-liners that are there to entertain people who like that sort of thing. But yeah, I thought that this match was a really, really strong way to kick off the show, and it probably got a little bit more leeway with me in terms of not expecting it to be a good match, so when it was called well and the in-ring action wasn't too bad, I just ended up quite liking it. And as always, when I'm rating these things, this is not overall, it's for my expectations of the show, because I don't like doing general ratings, this is a 4 or a 5 or a 6 wrestling match overall, because there's so many different styles that you can't possibly do that. So it's all relative, and for my expectations of Extreme Rules, this match came out at a 5 out of 6, because it really was well called. The in-ring action was good. It made everyone involved look good. It started out the show in a high intensity way. The crowd was hot for it. It was just a smart way to start the pay-per-view. So yeah, Roman and the Undertaker against Shane and Drew came out at a 5 out of 6. My warm, fuzzy feelings towards the commentary team didn't last long, though, because after a Seth and Becky promo that I'll talk about when I get to that segment, we got the Raw tag title match between the Revival and the Usos, which should have been, without a doubt, the best match on the card, and probably was for a lot of people, especially the people who can see. But from a commentary standpoint, this match had nothing. It was terrible. And I am a huge Usos fan. I really, really do think that they're probably my favourite tag team in wrestling. I love the promos, and I have some real connection with the Usos. And I really do think that this should have been one of my favourite matches of the night, and it just wasn't, because going straight from that tag match where the commentary was just on the ball, they were saying everything that was happening, and yeah, it was a slower paced match, and I think that had something to do with it. But I also think that it's because they felt like it was more important, because it has Shane, because it has The Undertaker, Roman Reigns, Drew McIntyre. They're like, oh, this is a big fight thing, we've got to call it, we've got to do our jobs properly. And then this match, they just took a break, and it's just so frustrating. One of the first things that was really, really frustrating was Renee. And I usually like Renee for the most part, but she really annoyed me a lot of times throughout this pay-per-view. The fact that she was trying to make it sound like it's a bad thing that the Revival have money now. Like, oh, they're just talking about how rich they are, blah, blah, blah. They're out there spending all this money and not focusing on being a champion. And she just went on and on and on and on about it. And I was like, this doesn't make any sense. Like, maybe if the Revival were faces and it was Graves doing it, then yeah, but Renee, people having money because they're the champs isn't a bad thing. Them spending money because they're the champs isn't a bad thing. And it just really, really rubbed me up the wrong way. I think maybe it wouldn't have been as bad if the rest of the match wasn't just Jey Uso taking flight, going to the top rope, oh, this, and that is classic tag team wrestling right there. Could you see that? At one point, you could clearly hear super kicks being delivered, and they were like, oh, did you hear that smack? There was just call after call after call of just vagueness, of just this happened, oh, over the top rope, oh, a dive, this, oh, a counter, slammed into the mat. Just all of those horrible, vague types of calls that they do, and it just, like, it really drags me out. And it's such a shame, because the beginning of the pay-per-view really drew me in. I was like, oh, this could actually be good. You know, you've got this match. This was one of the reasons that I was like, oh, well, you've got this match and loads of other matches. It's going to be a good pay-per-view. If Roman and Undertaker versus Shane and Drew was a good match, then the rest of the pay-per-view is going to be good. And to go straight from that into the Revival Usos and absolutely hate it, just speaks volumes to how lazy and vague WWE's commentary can be sometimes. And I really, really want to like the product. If there's one thing that I hate doing the podcast sometimes, it's coming on here when I know that I've got to just complain. Like with these WWE main roster pay-per-views, I know that I'm going to come and sit here and tell you that they dropped this call and they dropped that call and they didn't say this and they didn't say that, and it just it bums me out, because when I first started this, I wanted to be, one of the positive voices, one of the, oh yeah, like this, they're doing a really good job kind of voices, and unfortunately, it just doesn't work out that way sometimes. This was a real disappointment of a match, and if I can, I'm going to try and put my notes in the description today, so if you actually want to have a read through and see the notes that I wrote down, take a look down there, and I'm sure there will be a big list of things that they said that just added to the vagueness of the match, because that's literally all my notes was for this match. It's just a list of stupid things that people said and who said it, and I don't really have anything more to say about it. The Revival picked up the win, retained their championships with the Shatter Machine in a 3 out of 6 match that I'm sure would have been much better if the commentary could be bothered to do their jobs. Never have I been more happy to hear Byron Saxton's voice, because after the frustration of that last match, when I saw that it was a SmackDown match, I was actually pretty happy. And then it turned out to be Cesaro versus Aleister Black, and this was another one of the matches that could definitely be put up for a contender of match of the night. It was a really, really good match that they called pretty well, and one of the things that I noticed that was absent from this match, and it wasn't absent for the whole pay-per-view because they did it later on, but there was no Byron and Graves bickering in this match, or at least not that I noticed. I do hate the way that the announcer, I'm pretty sure his name's Greg Hamilton, right? I hate Greg's announcement of Aleister Black. Now, I usually really dig his entrances. I think that they're really, really cool. And I do think he's the best announcer that they've got there these days. But the way he does Aleister Black's name, the Aleister, makes it sound like he stubs his toe halfway through the entrance. But that's a really small gripe, and it definitely didn't affect the rating of the match. I thought that it was a bit short for what I would have liked, but in the time that they had there, I think they utilised that pretty well and made both men look really good. There was some really nice spots, really, as you would think that there would be with Cesaro and Aleister Black. In the early moments, both of them looked for their finishers. The Black Mass got teased, the Neutralizer got teased, and then after that, it just sort of turned into a bit of a strike fest, really. The commentary was putting over how calm Aleister Black is. There was a nice call by Corey Graves talking about Aleister being an 8-point striker with both hands, both knees, both feet, and both elbows being lethal, and then he was just utilising those throughout the match, which I really liked. There was a springboard uppercut at one point, and then that got countered when he tried it a second time with a knee to the face. Aleister he went for the double knees from the middle rope, but Cesaro countered. The commentary didn't say what it was with, but I think that my friend said it was the pop-up uppercut, I think, and if it was that, then blimey, it's a shame that they didn't call that, because I would have marked hard for that. Cesaro got like a stomp to the sternum at one point. One of the story of the match really was Cesaro trying to keep the throttle going and stay at Aleister Black, but Black just working his left leg, I think, just utilising those leg kicks, weakening the leg and working it. He had him in a submission at one point, and they either didn't call it or I missed what it was, and they were playing up whether Cesaro would tap out, but he managed to reverse and lock in the sharpshooter, then the crossface, and then in the end, Cesaro was looking for the neutralizer, and Black managed to hit Black Mass for the win. And I do think that it definitely could have gone up into that 5 if it had been given, 5 minutes more. I felt like as it got really started and as I was properly drawn into it, it sort of ended, and I just think I would have liked just those couple extra minutes, because I don't feel like I should be living in a world where I gave Undertaker and Roman a 5 out of 6, but I give Aleister and Cesaro a 4 out of 6. But it's just one of those. I really do think that it just needed those couple of extra minutes, because the start was a little bit slower and it really picked up, in the middle towards the end. And I just would have liked to see them kick the crap out of each other for a couple of extra minutes, especially when, there's some time that they wasted later on in the show that they definitely could have utilised just to make this match that little bit better. So yeah, I gave Aleister Black versus Cesaro a 4 out of 6. The biggest waste of time of the night, in my opinion, probably because it was the most predictable one. It's Bayley versus Nikki Cross and Alexa Bliss for the SmackDown Live Women's Championship. Didn't enjoy this one, can't say that I did at all, really. It picked up a little bit towards the end, but the start was taken up more or less solely with Corey Graves and Byron Saxton bickering. And anyone who's listened to this podcast before will know that rubs me the wrong way. It grates on me something fierce. I guess when you've only got those voices to go through and your experience of the show is being filtered by that, it just makes for this sort of blood-boilingly annoying atmosphere of can I please just find out what's going on in the ring instead of you two bickering and Corey trying to sound smart and make Byron look like an idiot, and I hate it. In the early moments, it really, really was just that, and I was just like, come on. And then it really never really got there for me. It never really picked up. There was some nice character work beforehand with Alexa Bliss giving Nikki Cross an Alexa Bliss t-shirt. Nikki was like, oh, it's my style, and my sighted friend told me it was all cut up, and I thought that was pretty cool. And it just all sort of ended up playing out the way that you think it would, really. There was some nice spots, like Bliss, I think, being locked in the crossface by Bailey, but biting her hands to get out of there. I couldn't work out at the time whether it was Bliss or Nikki. It's down in my notes as Nikki, but I'm pretty sure I heard Bliss, so I'm going to say Bliss. But either way, I thought that was a nice spot. This match sort of started to fall apart when Nikki tagged herself in and got hit with a belly-to-back suplex. And then there was a little bit of shenanigans, and Bailey hit the elbow for the win. And I wish it was better. I really do. There wasn't another women's match on the card, and when you put this up against the stuff that we got in AEW, like Brandy versus Ali, which I will talk about in part 2, obviously. I just don't think it stacks up. The story is sort of lazy. They're going the exact way we all thought it was always going to go, with Nikki taking the loss, and Alexa's going to get all mad, and they're going to feud, and it's just like, there's so many different ways you could have gone with this. Like, people are like, oh, is Sasha coming back? Or like, you could have actually made them co-champions. It would be sort of cool if it turned out that Bliss actually was friends with Nikki. Like, bring it full circle, make Alexa a face, and sort of realise that the earnest friendship that Nikki Cross has given her is actually valuable, and that she actually likes it, and you switch it so that even though everyone thinks that she's just manipulating her, they're actually friends, or something like that. Have Alexa take the loss and Nikki be the one that gets annoyed. I don't know. It just seems like one of those things where it's just, we all knew it was going to play out like this, and it played out like this. And I always struggle to get into a match when things mess up for me, and it did manage to mess up at the beginning of this match. I put it back on, it spoiled the end of it, and I was like, okay, well, I knew that was going to happen, so it wasn't too bad. But yeah, I never really got invested in this match at all. I really thought that it was bit of a waste of time, really. I don't think it made anyone look particularly good, and I don't think that it really had anything to add story-wise, so I gave this a 3 out of 6. Bobby Lashley versus Braun Strowman in a last man standing match next. The introduction to this match. The following match is a last man standing match. There'll be no pinfalls, no submissions, no countouts, no disqualifications. The only way to win is to be the last man standing. Okay? How does that work? Like, I know how a last man standing match works, but you can't, like, act like you're explaining what the rules are and then not be like, you have to put your opponent down for a 10 count, or just something like that, man. Like, I was like, okay, really? How's that work? It just felt like it was going round in circles. But other than that, this match was pretty good. I actually was surprised by the fact that it was pretty good. I'm not particularly a fan of last man standing matches. I think it probably stems from playing the games and finding it really frustrating trying to play games, because my sight was never that good, and trying to kick out of things was always like quite hard. And obviously, when you're doing the last man standing matches, you have to press I was an Xbox player, so you have to press like A and hold it until it gets to the right place and then release it, and you got to try and do that a couple of times to get them back up. And I've always hated last man standing matches for that stop start sort of pace. I feel like it never gets up to a decent pace, but this was pretty cool. It was a spot fest. It was a giant monsters slugging it out sort of spot fest. Lashley, I think, looked the best out of this. I know that they ended up putting Braun Strowman over in the end, but I do think that Lashley looked the best. He took a lot of punishment in this before he ended up going down, especially towards the end of the match. At the beginning of the match, they shoulder blocked each other over. They shoulder blocked each other over for like 5 counts, and then there was a spear that put Braun down for a bit. They fought off into the crowd, into the mezzanine area, whatever that is, Michael Cole. They were fighting, just performing moves that were putting each other down for a bit, just mostly like shoulder blocks and slams, etc., etc. But they put each other through tables, the announce tables. At one point, Lashley launched himself over the barrier and was caught by Strowman, thrown over into the international announce area. Strowman shoulder blocked Lashley over the German announce table and then dumped that on top of him. There was a few holy shit moments from the crowd with a power slam off a wall. There was a few different things. I definitely managed to keep up with this match, and there was not really any points where I was like, what's going on? But I also just didn't enjoy it quite as much as I feel like I could have if it was just that little bit faster paced, and wasn't, so plodding between the spots, because it did feel like that. It was sort of like, right, this spot, and now we've got to get to this point, and we'll just sort of go over there and then do it, and there wasn't really any sense of urgency. But I do think that Lashley ended up looking really, really strong, and for a while I actually wanted him to win, because I was like, okay, this is the Bobby Lashley that I thought we were going to see when they started talking about bringing him in, and when they did bring him in, and I was like, okay, this could be really good, and then they just, they did the stuff that they did with him, and it's taken this long to build him back up to a point where I really thought that he could beat Braun Strowman and probably needed that win. I'm not that invested in Braun. I don't really feel like he needed that win, because it doesn't take that much to turn things round with Braun. All they'd have needed to do is just put him against someone else and have him beat them. But where does Lashley go from here? But yeah, I think the power slam off the wall probably ended things, or it was off something. I don't think it was off the wall, because I'm pretty sure that was earlier on in the match. But he power slammed him, and both men were down, and then it was until the 7, and then Strowman used comeback and got back to his feet, and he won. And that's the last man standing match between Bobby Lashley and Braun Strowman. Thought it was a 4 out of 6 match. It was definitely better than the Bayley match. I definitely enjoyed it more than the Revival Usos match. So we're actually living in a world where, because of the commentary, not because of the in-ring action, because of the commentary, I enjoyed a Roman and Undertaker match and a Braun Strowman versus Bobby Lashley match more than I enjoyed the Revival Usos, more than I enjoyed the SmackDown Live women's tag match. And I'm a huge fan of women's wrestling. I really like it. So to live in this world where I've now given stronger ratings to to those two matches than the other two is just sort of baffling to me. But yeah, that's all I really have to say about that one. So Braun Strowman versus Bobby Lashley gets a 4 out of 6. Team titles. It's the Planet's champions, Daniel Bryan and Rowan, versus Heavy Machinery versus The New Day. I actually really, really enjoyed this match. I thought that it was a really well put together match. The commentary did a really good job. I can't say that I noticed Graves and Saxton bickering too much. If they did, it must have just blended into the background, because I was enjoying the match. The one thing that I did get annoyed at commentary for was right at the beginning, when you have Graves talking about the fact that Bryan is right about the New Day, that they don't focus enough, that they're more focused on swiveling the hips and having fun than winning matches and championships. And I'm like, these are 5-time tag team champions. The other member of the stable that isn't there is the WWE champion. How can you say that these guys don't take it seriously? The only other really missed calls or dropped calls in the match were Bryan doing a knee off the apron at some point. They didn't really say who to. And then at one point we got Otis driving Bryan into the canvas, just launching Bryan across the ring. And other than that, it was all pretty spot on. Woods hit Bryan with a rolling elbow at one point. Woods also got pop-up power slammed. Big E got hit with the compactor. Big E had some pretty cool spots in this match. I think he hit his spear on Bryan at one point, and then he was also showing his power against Rowan, actually managing to get a superplex on him later on in the match. Otis and Tucker were doing a pretty good job too. They, like I said, they got the compactor on Big E. The caterpillar got pulled off. Bryan was giving Big E the yes kicks at some point, and Big E was just begging for more, ate a few more, and then hit Bryan with a clothesline. I thought that was pretty good. At one point, Bryan was trying to submit Xavier and then wouldn't break the hold when he was supposed to, and he was like, no DQ. Again, later on, he had Big E in the label lock after a diving headbutt, and he was screaming at Big E to tap, and that was a pretty cool moment. I really, really liked having Bryan in this match. I miss seeing Bryan in competition. I feel like it's been so long since I've actually seen or heard heard his voice, like any sort of promo or anything like that, especially since I've dropped off watching like the main roster, especially on a weekly basis. I do keep up with it, but it was just good. I really, really liked this match. I can't think of one thing actually that I didn't like, and I didn't feel like the commentary let me down at any point other than those bits that I pointed out. But other than that, this was a damn good match that I really do think I think this might be one of the most must-watch matches of the night. If you're into tag team wrestling, I think this one will float your boat. I was surprised because I'm not that much for heavy machinery. Before the match, I would have told you that I'd have preferred it to be just Bryan and Rowan versus the New Day, but I really like that the New Day had to overcome two teams, that Big E was the one that ended up winning it for them. That just advances that story of how much the New Day needs Big E. They really put over the teamwork of Big E and Xavier and made them look like worthy competitors. So when they picked up the win at the end with the Midnight Hour, I was really, really pleased. I was really happy. I just thought that it was, well, actually, I wasn't happy. I'm telling a lie, because as soon as they won, I was like, oh, Heyman's gonna come out and cash in on Kofi now. I was just like, oh, that means Kofi's he's gonna lose, isn't he? But I was really excited by the prospect of having the New Day as tag champs and Kofi as the WWE champion. So I really, really thought that this was a really good match, and I gave it a 5 out of 6. AJ Styles versus Ricochet for the United States Championship, and I'm about to make you all hate me, because this, again, was awful from a commentary standpoint. They just never ever got me invested in the match. There was a couple of points, a couple of nice spots, but for the most part it was just on and on and on and on and on about how much AJ Styles and Ricochet either do or don't respect each other, how much Ricochet idolises AJ Styles, whether AJ Styles created so that he could beat Ricochet for the United States Championship, whether AJ was getting more respect throughout the match, etc, etc. And I know that people will say that that's story, they're trying to tell a story, that's fine, but I can't invest because you're not saying. There's a lot of Ricochet takes to the sky, and the athleticism of Ricochet paying off in these early moments, drilling him into the mat. AJ Styles, face first goes Ricochet, just a lot of that. Now there were some good calls. There was one point where AJ was looking for a brainbuster, Ricochet countered, AJ countered again and got the brainbuster that he was looking for originally. We got some nice Gallows and Anderson involvement. They attacked Ricochet before the bell, but then other than that, until the closing moments of the match, they sort of stayed out of it, other than a point where Ricochet hit a shooting star and went for the near fall, but AJ had his foot under the ropes, which Gallows and Anderson pointed out, calling back that when that happened a few weeks prior. other than that, there's like a flying clothesline and Ricochet hitting two Northern suplexes, Northern Lights suplexes in a row, rolling through for that second one to play off his strength. He also managed to roll through and escape a attempt at the Styles Clash at one point. He managed to deck Anderson at some point, but then while the ref was distracted, Gallows got him, and in the end, AJ hit the Styles Clash for the win. I thought that there were some alright moments, but really there was, for a good portion of the match, especially that first half, it was slow, it was boring. The commentary really didn't talk about the action that was going on, and that's why it was slow. I'm sure that what was going on in the ring was probably really, really good to see. I'm sure it was crisp and clean and flowing, and it just makes me wish that I could see these sort of matches do, because I know that this match deserves a higher rating than what I gave it, but I can't give it higher when the commentary are just not doing their jobs properly, when they're just ruining my experience of it. And honestly, I was really disappointed, because, you know, it's Styles, it's the club, and it's Ricochet. These are people that I am really, really interested in. I like AJ Styles. I'd love to see more from the club. I'm a big Ricochet fan ever since I started watching NXT with him down there, and now I think that he's done alright on the main roster. And I should have loved this match. It's the same thing as the Revival Usos match. I should have enjoyed this, and I didn't, because the commentary couldn't be bothered to do their jobs. They were too busy just talking and talking and talking, going on and on and on about the respect thing. And there was one point where Graves and Renee were going backwards and forwards about this respect thing. Oh, does AJ Styles respect Ricochet, or Ricochet idolises AJ Styles, blah 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 blah, and they're going on and on and on, and Michael Cole at one point just goes, "Oh my god," and then they carry on, and I was just like, it just really, really makes me mad, because I really want to enjoy it, and they just make it so I can't. So in the end, yeah, AJ Styles picked up the win with that Styles Clash, and I gave it a 3 out of 6. Probably the best part of this really was the promo that AJ and the club cut a bit earlier on, where they said that they didn't form the club again because of Ricochet. Ricochet just happened to be the person that was in the way when they reformed, and he's going to be the first of many, and that's just too sweet. And I was actually quite surprised to see that they're going to lean into the actual too sweet thing. They offered one to Charlie, and then they were like, just kidding. And that was probably the best bit, and it's unfortunate that they had to go this way with reforming the club while he's against Ricochet. It's good that AJ is the new US champion, but I do wonder where Ricochet is going to go from there. Maybe go over and feud with Finn or something like that. Finn Nakamura Ricochet match would be pretty entertaining. I'd be interested in that. But yeah, Styles versus Ricochet gets a 3 out of 6. What world do we live in? The last 2 weeks, you've turned Kevin Owens' face. Everyone's really behind him. He's been cutting shoot-style promos on the company, pointing out the fact that people are being underutilised and they aren't on TV, and setting himself up as an opponent for Shane, putting himself as an adversary for Shane, speaking what a lot of people would say is the truth. He's got lots of momentum on his side, and now he's against Dolph Ziggler. What kind of match are you going to have? Not a match. That's what we're going to have. Oh. Dolph gets in the ring, gets stunned, gets pinned. Owens cuts the same promo that he cut on Tuesday, tells tells Shane McMahon to kiss his ass and go straight to hell, and then leaves. And that's the end of that one. It was a 2 out of 6 because it was pointless. I actually quite enjoyed the fact that Heyman come out earlier on in the show and said that Brock was definitely going to cash in either in this match or the main event, because when New Day won, I automatically thought, oh, Kofi's going to lose, and then as Joe and Kofi made their entrances, I was like, oh, Kofi, you're coming towards the end of your title reign. And I thought that he'd probably beat Joe, but I was expecting the Lesnar cash-in afterwards. This one, I actually thought was really good. It was fairly short, or felt short, but it was quite intense. Joe, in the early moments, was going after Kofi. Kofi was trying to battle back, trying to go at Joe hard straight away, but Joe was backing him up with punches into the corner. Kofi tried to fight out of the corner, but got his legs swept by Joe, and they played up the fact that Kofi's knee might have hyperextended there. Then we got a crossbody from Kofi at some point that he got a near fall off, an STO near fall. We got a bit where the coquina clutch was locked in, and I was like, no, Kofi! And I was really getting into it, and he was going to escape, so Joe hit Uranagi and a senton instead and got the near fall. Joe got a power slam for a near fall. He also got a power bomb, which he tried for the cover for, but the ref was out of position, so he switched to the STF, which they were saying which they were saying was hard on Kofi's leg because it was trapped in the submission. And I really enjoyed this one. I thought the commentary did a really good job. There was a few points where it was like, Joe is a mix of malice and skill, and that's case in point right there. And look at that impact. There was a few of those types of things, but for the most part it was really on point. I didn't really struggle. The only thing that took me out of the match is that I was expecting Brock to come afterwards, but while it lasted I was like, yes, Kofi looking great, because Joe's like, I'm going to end your unexceptional reign. And then they have this really intense match where Joe's really trying and to take it to him and brutalise him, but Kofi actually manages to hit that Trouble in Paradise and come out with the win. And I was really happy about it, because I didn't want Kofi's title reign to end here. It'll probably end at SummerSlam with whoever he takes on next. I don't know how much longer Kofi's got left. It feels like he might be going on borrowed time, but I thought that this was a really solid 4 out of 6 match, and I really couldn't have asked for much more other than maybe just a little bit more time. It's just this issue with the lengths of pay-per-views, and don't worry, I'm not just going to give it to WWE with this, because this pay-per-view was actually shorter than Fight for the Fallen, but I just really struggle with these pay-per-view lengths. It's just like, there's so much stuff you could have just cut out and not done, and you didn't have to have that stupid Bayley match that was just a waste of time. It was really predictable, and and I thought that this was a really good co-main event. I think we should definitely call it the co-main event, because it's nice for once for the WWE title and the Universal titles to be defended back to back. I actually really liked that, because it made it feel like the Kofi and Joe match was really important. Like I said, commentary felt like was really good, kept me on point, and it was nice to see Kofi get a nice solid retention against Samoa Joe. And now we've got the whole New Day as champions, and I find that really exciting. So well done to Kofi on a successful retention there in a 4 out of 6 match. In the main event of the evening, a mixed gender tag match for the Universal and Raw Women's Championship. It's Seth Rollins, the Universal Champion, Becky Lynch, the Women's Champion, versus Lacey Evans and Baron Corbin, who have nothing, respectively. I'm going a little bit crazy now, bear with me. I actually quite enjoyed this match, but it got brought down towards the end. Oh yeah, we'll get to that. Right, okay, let's focus. So, in the early moments of the match, Seth was going strong. He was hitting Corbin with things like a rolling elbow. Corbin was rolling out of the ring. He hit a blockbuster. Corbin managed to grab the kendo stick, but it didn't really last too long. At one point, Lacey tried to do something to Seth, and Becky absolutely unloaded on her with the kendo stick, which was pretty fun to hear. One of the things that I like about when people get hit with kendo sticks is you know what's happening. There's certain moves and things that happen in wrestling that are understandable just from an audio standpoint. So a super kick, a kendo shot, yes kicks, the corner punch spot where the crowd counts along with it. There's just certain things that happen that you're like, okay, I know what happened just from the crowd. The commentary did pretty well. There was some annoying bickering between Renee and Graves, which is frustrating because that was something that I thought was just, I thought it was just kept to Saxton and Graves, but no, it's carrying over into the Renee and Graves relationship now, and it's sort of annoying because Renee has like annoying face syndrome because Graves is trying to give logical thought out arguments as to why Seth might not be on the top of his game. I've known this guy for years and he's had a singular focus getting his hands on the Universal Championship, but now he's with Becky and his focus isn't entirely on that and he might not be on the top of his game. And Cole and Renee are both like, what are you saying? Oh, do you really believe that? Oh, you spout lots of propaganda, so do you really believe that? Huh? And I'm just like, okay, fair enough when he is spouting propaganda, when he is talking crap, jump down his throat. But when he's making a good measured point about the fact that one of his friends is no longer as focused as he once was on his career because of his love life, that's an anecdote that I think is actually worth something. And I think it made Cole and Renee look worse for jumping down his throat with it than it did for Graves actually saying it. The amount of times they had to mention, they could lose both the titles and their love lives. I was like, please stop it, because it just makes them the opposite of cool. But having said that, I do think that they came out of this looking pretty good, Seth and Becky, because there was just lots of moments where they were protecting each other and getting wound up because of things that were happening to each other, and I liked that. Lacey had Seth Rollins, I'm not sure what, but she had his name across her backside, her bottom, her arse, her ass, whatever you want to call it. She had Seth's name across it, and I thought that was a nice little bit of mind games. Corbin introduced a pair of chairs into the match at one point, which he ended up getting sent into by Seth. Lacey took a lot of punishment with chairs, with eating a middle rope leg drop onto them. At one point, Lacey and Becky both had chairs and went for each other. Lacey hit Becky in the face, but Becky no-sold it. Lacey ate a Bexploder onto the chair. Lacey Evans hit a top rope moonsault on Becky. Baron was getting some decent moves in as well. He managed to hit the deep six on Seth at some point, and that was a nice little sequence. And it was all actually really good, a lot better than I thought. I liked that Becky, for the most part, stayed away from Corbin, even though Lacey and Corbin were hell-bent on actually, performing double team moves on Seth. They tried to put them both through the table at some point. Lacey and Corbin tried to put Seth through the table at some point, but Becky came and laid them both out, pushed them onto the ramp. And there was a lot of moments where Seth and Becky saved each other, and I thought that actually played itself out pretty nicely, especially with the closing moments of the match, which we'll get to now, because needless to say, this match I actually quite enjoyed, and I thought that the commentary did a fairly good job. There was a couple of points where it was like, oh, planted, oh, this, that, just reactions, but for the most part they did pretty well. And one of the things I was getting frustrated with was I was like, why is Becky following the rules? Like, this is an Extreme Rules match. Why is she not going after Corbin? Why are they not doing anything? And I desperately wanted them to do something, because I have a video up of my top 5 intergender matches that I'd like to see in WWE. So I am a fan of intergender wrestling, and I was hoping for something here, just like Lacey about to do something really bad to Becky, to the point where Seth has to shove her out of the way so that she can't do it to Becky because it'd have been so bad, or one of them jumping in the way for the other one. But the way that they did it I thought was actually really good, with Becky eating an end of days, which she's not just eating a super kick or a shoulder tackle or getting shoved off something. Becky Lynch took an end of days, and by God, some people don't kick out of that. That's a strong move. Usually when he hits that move, he's got the win. And Seth's reaction afterwards was absolutely classic. The way that the commentators put it over was great. I could imagine the look on his face is that moment of, oh, you're going to get it now. And the sounds of the kendo sticks going off off Corbin was really, really cool. Just hearing Seth just like just over and over and over again, and then hitting like 3 curb stomps and picking up the win. Where I found it funny that Lacey sort of legged it as he was going mental at Corbin. It's just funny, the idea that Lacey was like, oh no, he just hit Becky Lynch with an end of days. I didn't know he was that messed up. I'm out of here. I'm not backing him up. I really, really enjoyed that. I thought it was a really cool way for Seth to fire up and show how much he cares about Becky in a way that wasn't as cringy and cheesy as they've previously been doing, like the promo earlier on in the night where they said that they took a walk around the city, but it wasn't a romantic stroll because the man's not really into that mushy sort of stuff, and they were looking at the Liberty Bell and it's got a crack in it, just like Corbin's dome's gonna have it in it after I've finished with him. And Becky was like, oh, I looked at this statue and I thought about what it'd be like if they made a statue of Lacey Evans, just like her career will be after tonight, all covered in pigeon crap. And I was like, those aren't cool guy jokes, those aren't badass. Like, that to me feels more like an old Becky Lynch kind of joke, as opposed to, you know, New Day Becky Lynch, New Day, these days Becky Lynch. But I thought that Becky going mental earlier on when Seth was in danger from Lacey, it just felt really genuine and cool that he was like, what did you just do? And like went after him, and I thought that was a really cool finish to the match. And it could have been a 5 out of 6. It really, really could have. It really, really could have. But we had to get Brock Lesnar because the Fox deal's coming up, and you know, you gotta have those big stars as your champions. Seth Rollins isn't a big enough mainstream star, even though you put over the fact that he's like the first WWE superstar to ever be on ESPN and all the things that you, accolades that you rolled off the tongue as he was coming out. He's not good enough, so we've got to have Brock again. Someone that's not even champion, is not going to be around, is not going to cut promos, and it's just, man, it pisses me off. It really does. And I could go on it. I could go on about it for quite a while, really. I could tell you why I don't like it, but everyone knows why I don't like it, and it brought it down. It really did. Now, I'm not going to give it anything too low, anything drastic like a 3, but this could have been a 5 out of 6 match, and it dropped down to a 5 because Brock came out. And it wasn't even a decent cash-in. It wasn't like we were sort of expecting it. We want Lesnar, no we don't dueling chants during the match. And I was like firmly on the no we don't side. And, you know, we were sort of expecting it because of what Heyman said. And then the music hits, he comes down, and I'm like, oh, you know, finally we could see some sort of, I don't know, retribution for what Seth did to Brock with how he cashed in. And it's like they just didn't go there with it. They had him hit 2 German suplexes on Seth, and then the bell rang, and then they hit an F5, and it was done. Like, at least hit him with a couple of F5s. Don't just put him down with the one. You've literally undone any work that you'd done towards making Seth look good by being the Universal Champion. You may as well have not given him that championship and just kept it on Brock. That's how I feel. You may as well have just kept it on Brock the whole time, instead of having Seth have it, feud with Baron Corbin the entire time, more or less, and then get laid out with 1 F5 and 2 German suplexes and get beat, especially after a match that I didn't feel like there was that grueling. Like, they had some big spots, but there was nothing like major that was like, oh, there's no way you can survive that. So nonetheless, I came away at the end of the end of the pay-per-view a little bit pissed off, but I did think that this was a decent main event, and taking the Brock stuff out of the way, it was a 5 out of 6 match, but it was a 4 out of 6 once Brock had got finished with it. So thank Lesnar for that, Rollins. You get rated less because Lesnar has to come out and bury you. Oh, thank God I finished that. that was my review of WWE's Extreme Rules pay-per-view. That is the end of part 1 of my WWE versus AEW 2-part video. I'm going to be uploading my AEW Fight for the Fallen review. That's part 2 of this video, so if you want to know what I thought of that compared to this, come check it out. If you've liked what you've seen here, click that like button, let me know, boost my ego a bit, make me feel good. If you want to catch future videos, hit that subscribe button and the notify bell, and don't leave yourself out in the cold. And I'm off, and you should have a good one.